All right, thank you, Shepard. I'm Neil Cavuto, and a story of two leaks. You know about the leak of Donald Trump's taxes and how everyone was all over that. But what about the audio leak of Hillary Clinton's remarks disparaging Bernie Sanders supporters from back in February? Have you heard much on that? Yeah, I didn't think so. Well, that's what we're on top of. That was the homework assignment I gave you on Friday, right? Half-jokingly saying, just wait to see if the media would be as intrigued by this story and what Hillary Clinton was telling donors in a closed-door meeting back in February, as it was obsessed with the story of Mitt Romney doing the same thing 4 years ago, bemoaning with donors the 47% of Americans who would never support him, mainly because they were getting something from the government. Now, of course, as I mentioned at the time, Mitt Romney was embarrassed when those remarks came out and even told me in his first media interview afterwards that he was inelegant. He was. But the media never let go. On this story, what about the media? What did it do? Did you do your homework? Did you look around? I did. I didn't find much of anything. Brent Bozell, not too surprised, the Media Research Center, overall media whiz on why that is. Brent, good to see you.
Hi, Neil. How are you?
Well, not well. On this thing, I think if you're going to go after, as they should have at the time, with these behind closed-door remarks that Mitt Romney made, if you want to make hay of those, have at it. 4 years later, we're presented with the same scenario. With a Democratic standard bearer, nothing, crickets. What do you make of that?
Here are the numbers, and the numbers won't surprise you based on what you're saying, but they really are pretty incredible. If you look at the coverage of the media and Donald Trump's taxes, 49 minutes, 21 seconds. The media, and 42 seconds. The media and Hillary and what she had to say, 2 minutes and 41 seconds. Do the math. That's almost a 25-to-1 disparity. Now, look at the coverage of Hillary and her fundraising event, private statement, disparaging her opponent. Again, 2 minutes, 42 seconds. Look at Mitt Romney, private fundraiser, disparaging his opponent, the voters. Same thing, 88 minutes.
That tells you all you really need to know. Because it comes at a time when we got this leak of the tax documents, or the few that we were getting, and that was all over the place. But I'm saying go ahead, do that. But there's no even attempt to balance it out. But this is the most glaring reminder yet. No, and the attitude with Mitt Romney was, by golly, the American people need to know about this. And remember, that's over a 3-day period. That's 88 minutes. I mean, that's just a landslide of information. Here's something else we found, and this goes to show the disparity. Again, going back to Donald Trump and his taxes. Do you remember when the State Department employees went through Barack Obama's passport and they got information on his passport? Not only did the media not cover what was in there, but they denounced any attempt to possibly cover it. Even Andrea Mitchell was calling it an illegal act, and therefore they weren't going to cover it. So it's the exact opposite attitude as they're taking with Donald Trump now. But it comes at a time where, I know you and I shared that story of a former moderator of a presidential debate who is convinced that if she had her way, she wouldn't even mention Clinton emails. She wouldn't even mention Benghazi. She said those issues have been beaten to death. Everyone knows there's nothing there. But she would be, exhaustive going after Donald Trump and his taxes, which is fine. You want to go after Donald Trump and his taxes. I'm just saying, well, there are issues on the other side as well.
The New York Times said earlier this year that it was the responsibility to go after the press, to go after Donald Trump. The media had to do this. They're talking about news reporters, and this is exactly what the New York Times did. But to see the coverage that's come out on these things, one reporter said that his supporters call it genius. His opponents called him a tax dodger. It's neither one of those things. It's not a genius to do what anybody can do. do, and people do every day of the week. Nor is he a tax dodger. He didn't dodge any taxes. Major Garrett, unfortunately, on CBS, did much the same thing, saying that he was starving Uncle Sam. No, he's not starving Uncle Sam. These were legitimate tax a tax return that he was filing, completely legitimate.
Yeah, we're going to get into this later about these amounts, and if instead of Trump you put like a name like General Motors or Cisco there, no one would bat an eyelash. But of course, it is what it is. Yeah. I just think that it's a good idea. If you're going to go after one side, you go after the other. But again and again, that is not the case. Brent, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Neil.
All right. So which leak then is more damaging and maybe longer lasting? Former Sanders supporter Harlan Hill, Washington Times columnist Madison Cavuto, and liberal commentator Danielle McLaughlin. All right, Danielle, ended with you. Your take on this and whether the media, regardless of your opinions on either of these issues, is being fair here.
Well, I'm not sure that it's going to sway people who are already supporting Clinton or who are already supporting Trump. I think the reason the media is going after Trump, there's two reasons. Number one, he hasn't released his tax records, which is, as you have to admit, unusual for a presidential candidate. Number two, he stood on the sidelines for years and he threw stones at Obama and Romney for their tax rates. And he's also disparaged the poor who don't pay federal tax. And so I think there's a sense that if you're going to stand on the sidelines and throw stones, you better not be in a glass house.
But you didn't answer my question. Do you think the same zeal was applied to Hillary Clinton and what she said and disparaged of Bernie Sanders supporters?
Well, actually, I don't think she disparaged the Sanders supporters, and I would say to your viewers...
Disgruntled baristas?
Well, what she
Kids
talked
in
about...
their parents' basement?
What she talked about was a fact that 30% of 18 to 34-year-olds are still living with their parents, which is a number we haven't seen in 130 years. I say to your viewers, read the transcript, don't listen to the spin, because frankly...
Would you feel the same way if Mitt Romney had said that, or Donald Trump had said that about Sanders supporters?
Romney have called people who have called them takers, have been disparaging. Read the transcript. Frankly, Neil, this was not disparaging. She was very much emotionally connected. We not only read the
transcript, we played it. But leaving that aside, right. Harlan, my only concern with this, regardless whether you like Hillary Clinton or whether you like Donald Trump, is if you're going to go after one on leaked taxes, and you certainly went after a prior Republican nominee on leaked audio, you should show maybe half the same zeal on this leaked audio.
Oh, but the media won't do that. I mean, look, there's no comparison between the two. It's clear that Hillary's comments were much more egregious. I mean, but this is the tone that's just rife with, the trademark Hillary condescension and contempt that she has for millennials. Look, this is a group of people that almost robbed her of the nomination through their support of Bernie Sanders. So I think that she takes it very personally when she disparages millennial voters.
Well, here's where I actually agree with something Danielle had said. And Madison, I don't take any offense to what the candidates, in this case, Mitt Romney 4 years ago, Hillary Clinton now, I accepted face value what they said and what they meant. Now, it's the way it came out that wasn't well received.
Exactly.
But I do think, Madison, that it makes you think, is the media really trying hard to embarrass Donald Trump? Maybe he's making that easy. Well, but they don't do the same on the other side. That's pretty obvious.
I think the media is absolutely trying hard to embarrass Donald Trump and to make him look like an idiot. They focus, some stations not at all, on Hillary Clinton's comments. I agree with you. The comments weren't that egregious. Same with Mitt Romney in 2012. I wasn't offended with either of these. However, there are supporters of Bernie Sanders that are on the fence and may not vote for Hillary Clinton over these. But going back to the media, I think what we're forgetting is Hillary Clinton, she's had failures less than 4 years ago they're not talking about. This is a leaked, potentially, detrimental thing to her. But what's most important is Benghazi. Let's look at that. 4 Americans left dead because of her decisions as Secretary of State. Let's look at Boko Haram, who she refused to put on the official terrorism list during her time as Secretary of State. Meanwhile, tens of thousands were killed. Young girls were sold into sex slavery in Nigeria, sometimes turned into suicide bombers. This is unacceptable, and this really raises a lot of concerns as to whether she can protect this nation, and I don't think she can, and I wish the mainstream media would be talking about this more.
All right, Danielle, now the question becomes, is this a type of issue, these are the type of issues that should come up in the VP debate tomorrow or next week in the next presidential debate? Or all bets off.
I suspect that they will. You know, what we see with the two vice presidential candidates is they were both successful governors, and what they're going to be called to do, I think, on that stage is really defend the policies and the practices and the backgrounds of their own candidates. So I can see the Trump tax issue coming up, and Mike Pence is going to have to defend it. I can see this transcript coming up, and frankly, I don't think Tim Kaine will have a problem, because if you look at these words in context, she talked about these people who hoped to come out of college with a job that was better than the barista, and they actually didn't. She had empathy. She was a realist, and she said she would not promise.
Any way we want. And by the way, I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt. I know what she meant. I know how it sounds. I know what Mitt Romney said, and I know what he meant, and I know how that sounds. Now, Harlan, what I'm asking you, though, is that when the media takes this back and digests all of this, and clearly seems to prefer any scandal or potential scandal involving Donald Trump over anything having to do with Hillary Clinton, that sends a message. He's the guy we're after, not her.
Oh, no question. Look, my new party trick is to ask New York Times and Washington Post reporters who's a greater threat to the United States, ISIS or Donald Trump? And almost always they're not able to give the straight answer that you'd expect. And so I think that actually tells you a lot about the mindset of the mainstream media in this country this election cycle. They will do and compromise all of their values to defeat him. And I think that's what this boils down to.
I think Donald Trump has been given a pass from the moment he descended that escalator, and I think that the mainstream media, frankly, didn't think that he was a real candidate.
Please.
I'm not sure he did either, and so we're finally seeing the kind of scrutiny that all of the other candidates have been subjected to.
Danielle, do you see the headlines in the papers? Are you looking at the same papers? If he's getting a pass, then I'm svelte.
No, he's getting the same scrutiny that Hillary Clinton got for her server, for her email, for her record as Secretary of State. This is the big leagues, and he needs to get that kind of scrutiny.
Hillary's the most coddled candidate for the president of the United States in U.S. history.
All right, we'll watch it. Obviously, there is very little gap in between there. We'll see what happens, guys. Thank you very, very much. Meanwhile, leading British opposition leader who is helping Donald Trump prepare for his next debate. Say what you will about Nigel Farage. If indeed it is true that he is helping Donald Trump, that is a significant development. He'll tell us himself if the rumors are true.